Okay, so now it's 7 o'clock. We start our Wolfi's talk. So again, Felix, welcome. I'm very excited to speak to you because I know you know so much about tires, and I'm always eager to learn. And so our listeners. And I think you're really a brand which we're working for so many years, and we're so happy that we represent you here in the Middle East market. And the tires are really amazing for road, for off road, and I'm really looking forward to speak to you about all things tires and tubes, because I think it's quite an interesting topic. So thank you very much for taking the time. And Felix, thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here and to have some audience in this quite difficult times.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's why we started. When we thought we introduced this, and we're speaking to the pros, and we wanted to entertain our customers, and now it's become a real pleasure for us to bring all the not only the stars of cycling on the bike, but as well the stars behind. And obviously, you're one of the brands we're really keen to present. So we started with a few pictures, and I asked Will, please, if you share with us the intro pictures, and we will discuss a little bit what we see about Schwalbe. And you can tell us a bit about okay, here we see, I guess, the headquarters of Schwalbe.
Yeah, you're right. So that's the headquarters. It's 50 kilometers far away from Cologne in the area that's called Bergisches Land. So it's quite hilly, good region to ride the bike on road and off road. And you can see 4 blocks, I would say, and the middle center. And now I'm sitting in one of the offices in the middle center.
Okay.
When I'm talking to you, and yeah, the most of this place is based on the warehouse.
Yeah.
Where we provide all the articles and tires and tubes for the European market.
Yes.
But there's also the marketing department, the sales department, the purchasing department, and of course my department, the technical department, and the lab where we test all the stuff. And a few months ago or 1 year ago, we started to implement a production line here.
Yes.
It's really unique. It's the Aeroton tube, which we will talk later about. But then that's really new.
Okay. This is in Germany, or is this in Asia?
This is in Asia. So you may know that we have a joint venture partnership with a Korean brand.
Yes.
Many years, so even more than 30 years now. And it's based on 2 production facilities. And this one is from Indonesia. It's close to Jakarta, where we build all the high-class tires, so the performance and evolution line, more the sportive tires. And on this picture, you can see how much manufacturing and handwork is needed to build a bicycle tire. It's really sensitive. It's really talking about a road racing tire. It's quite a narrow tire. We're talking about 25 to 32 millimeter. And you see that there are a lot of building ramps, a lot of materials. And to put all these in accurate position, it takes a lot of experience, but also a lot of handwork to have high quality tires.
I can see this, and I spoke once to one of the engineers, I can't remember who it was at a show, and he said, listen, to make a high performance road tire is one of the most, if not the most difficult tire to produce, because it is extremely light. We're speaking 160, 180 gram. It has no weight. It has to be perfectly balanced because you have speeds up to 100, 110, 120 kilometers per hour. We're dealing with a lot of pressure on these tires. We have so many demands because on any other tire, on a car tire, on a plane tire, we just make them a little heavier. But this is so weight sensitive, and it needs so puncture protection. And obviously, it's only 2 tires, so we make them as well very secure. So I think there's so many things you need to keep into consideration that I'm always really humbled when I see these and I see the videos of production. It's amazing,
Yeah. You can say it's somehow the holy grail of tire building. If you compare it to motorcycle or to passenger car tires, which are using much more stiffer materials like metal or steel.
Yes.
And for a bicycle tire, it's just the carcass material, the bead core, and the rubber. And all these 3 parts have to be in 100% accuracy to get a good run out, to get a good stability. And especially for road racing tire, if you consider that sometimes you have to inflate them up to 11 bar.
Yes.
It's a really sensitive product.
What's the name Schwalbe? Where's this coming from?
That's a good question. So it's based on the name swallow, so the bird.
Yeah.
And it's the synonym or the sign for Korean language for freedom.
Okay. Okay.
And we are using this name because if you ride a bicycle, you are free and you enjoy the freedom. So it's a really good combination.
And how many years is Schwalbe on the market? How many years is the company existing?
Yeah, it's really a long time. So the first or the foundation was built in 1922.
Okay.
Almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
And they started the business with selling bicycle parts from Asia. And in 1973, we decided to focus for 100% on bicycle tires and tubes.
Okay. And how many people work today at Schwalbe?
So in the headquarters, we are around 160 people. And if you count our people in the production in Vietnam and in Indonesia, we have around about 3,000 to 3,500 people.
Wow. Wow. I hear sometimes, I can't remember how many tires you produce a year, but it was an unbelievable number. Do you know numbers of tires per year?
Yes. So this year is somehow incredible high numbers, and we're reaching the 20 million number for bicycle tires and 22 million for tubes. So it's really, really huge.
Wow, unbelievable! Yeah, I mean, this is just an unbelievable amount of tires you need to produce, and it's amazing. Yeah. And the next picture we see is obviously we're speaking about quality, and obviously you have pro teams. You go to the toughest places where you can ride the bicycle. So this is Paris-Roubaix and other places where you're testing pro tires. So how long does it really take to develop a new tire? Or the guys are riding now, when will we as consumers be able to buy such a tire?
Mm-hmm. So I would say it's a little bit depending on the level of development. So sometimes you make just a redesign of a tread profile or tread pattern. That's something that we can do easily in 1 year. But if we're talking about new carcass material, new breaker or puncture guard material, new compounds, it takes at least 2 to 3 years to get the stage from the prototype to the commercial production.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Yeah, it's really amazing what you do. Yeah.
And it's not sometimes it's really hard because sometimes you develop something and see their benefits. Sometimes you can say you have a super grippy tire, but on the other hand, then you recognize after 2,000 Ks of riding, the tread is disappearing, and then you have to go backwards and do all the steps again. So it's not a really linear development. It's really up and down and back and forth. Mm-hmm. So it's not the easiest way, but we really appreciate and love to do these things, and also to involve our professional athletes to have the best product.
Okay, so this is quite important. We have a next picture as well where we see somebody riding in Roubaix, so really on these extremely rough roads on a Scott bike and on the tires from Schwalbe. So this is very important for you, that you're really dealing with the pro teams, that you understand what's happening, and that they give you the first feedback before you really go to the market with it.
Yeah, so this is somehow a historical picture. The guy who's riding the Scott bike is Martin Elmeger, the Swiss champion. It was in 2015, and it was the first time that a professional athlete in the world who was riding on tubeless tires. Okay. And the more interesting point, it was a 30 millimeter G1 tire. Yeah. Everybody who's familiar with our product range knows G1 is normally the gravel tire. And that the main idea for us when we started to think about gravel was Paris-Roubaix. So from our point of view, it was more from a road racing background than from the mountain bike perspective. And after having success in Roubaix, Martin took the 5th place, and he was leading the bunch a lot of kilometers. And it was the first time after 13 participations without any puncture and any technical issue.
Oh, okay.
Wow, so that was really, really impressive. And he was riding only 3.8 bar in the front and 4.0 in the back. And this guy is quite heavy, so he's around 80 kilogram. Yeah. It was like somehow a revolution.
Very good, very cool. And then we have another rider, another German rider, or obviously Martin is a Swiss rider, but we have another German hero, Patrick Lange, winning Ironman Hawaii on Schwalbe tires.
Yeah, right. So that was somehow when we look back to the development of the current Pro One road racing tire, the triathletes were one of the most important people to get feedback from the development phase. and Patrick was riding the prototype of the Pro 1 TT, the time trial version that we have today. And he was having a super fast split on the bike. And today we can say that we have, despite the big German guy who's riding on another German brand, we have all of the best triathlon athletes in the world on Schwalbe tires.
Okay, very cool, very good, fantastic. We wanted to look a little bit into rim and tire interface, and we prepared some slides there as well. So if Will, you could do this for us. What's the most popular product you have in your range when you're looking at selling all these items?
Yeah, so due to the fact that we're really based here in a region that's close to the Benelux countries,
yes,
but also to Austria and Switzerland, most of the tires that we are selling today are dedicated to the touring and trekking tires.
Yes.
And the most sold tire is the Marathon Plus.
Okay.
So it's, I guess it's around about 4 million tires per year.
Okay.
But of course, we are really dedicated to all other tire segments as well, and mountain bike and road racing is really important.
Okay, but that's obviously a tire you're so famous for, that Schwalbe Marathon. I think that's one of the tires, and I think everybody who's on touring bikes or just regular bikes, they love this tire, and you have a lot of puncture protection in there. So I think that's really great. But it's not so popular in Dubai because obviously we're more looking into speed and racing and everything. Yeah. So for us, this is a bigger market, and now the mountain biking market is more popular. But I wanted to show and maybe discuss with you as well about how to build a tire and how does the tire really sit on the rim. And so you had this slide here, and maybe we can just talk to this. Obviously on the bottom we see the rim, and then how the tire is hooked into the rim itself. But maybe you can explain a bit what we see.
Yeah, of course. So this is a cross section of the current Pro 1 tubeless easy tire. And when we start on the right side, you can see that we have a tubeless sealant bead, and we call it like a rubber lip. And that has a function that if you mount a tire and do the first inflation, due to the rubber lip, the close between the rim and the tire is always closed. So it should be super easy to inflate the tire, even with a floor pump, without using a compressor. And this rubber lip is just for preventing the air to go out of the tire.
Okay, nice.
And then this tire has a new construction. It's called turn-up construction. So usually you have a French former where you have a lot of layers of carcass below the tread.
Yes.
But if we later talk about souplesse, we wanted to develop a new riding behavior, a new riding feeling. And then we had the idea to reduce the layers of carcass below the tread where you have the contact to the road.
Okay.
So on this tire, we have only 2 carcass layers on the top, but you see 3 layers on the sidewall, which preventing sidewall cuts. And especially if you ride the road racing tires on wider rims, the tires get a little bit more exported to the outside, and then you have the risk of cutting the tire more easily. So we have 3 layers, and the third layer on this tire is also making the tire tubeless easy or tubeless ready, with special topping on the carcass.
Okay, and I think it's interesting to see the wear indicator. Sometimes we have customers coming back and said, okay, I have already holes in my tire because they don't really understand what the punctuation is there. But this is just to see when the rubber is worn on top, and it's the time when you replace it. And underneath you would see then the 14 millimeter, the guard. This is the part where you use this material in order to avoid that a thorn or anything punches through.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So in this tire, it's a Vectran material, which is normally used for armor wear, for the army and military stuff.
Yes.
And the tread wear indicator, it's really a nice having to see how or when is the tire worn out, because sometimes it's really hard to judge or evaluate if the tire needs to be replaced or not. But that's just the easy identification if you have this tire indication or wear indicator.
We do have a piece of tire in the shop, and we have a thumbnail, and sometimes we're trying to get this through that belt, that V-guard, and it's just almost impossible. You on the side, it's so easy to puncture, but on the top, where you have that kind of bulletproof vest material, It's really almost, I would say, bulletproof for that. Yeah, maybe we have the next picture. Very good. And now here we can see maybe how a tire looks like with the tube. So the blue thing in the middle, you can see it goes all the way around.
Yeah.
And you see then the yellow material is Kevlar or wire. Is this the difference between a higher quality and a lower quality tire?
Yes, you're right. It's not. It's sometimes it's made from Kevlar, but we use at least 4 different materials. It's depending on the tire volume, on the tire segments. For example, if you go for a mountain bike tire, you use lower pressure. Then the bead core can have more elongation and doesn't need to fulfill the high pressure requirements of a road racing tire. And especially for tubeless, which we'll see on the next slide, we need a really resistant bead core material with more or less 0 elongation. And we do a lot of burst pressure tests to see what happens if you inflate the tire to maximum pressure. And even on that, we apply 1.6, a factor of 1.6, so reaching up to 12 or 13 bar. And then the tire has to rest for at least 1 hour on the rim. And then we measure the elongation, so the inner tire circumference, and check if there's any movement of the bead core, which could cause to derailing of the tire.
Okay, understand. Okay, that's interesting. So now we see obviously the blue is kind of going around the side of the tire and it's open to the middle. So that means it's a tubeless tire. Right. Having a tube inside. I think this is quite interesting. Well, maybe if you go back one more time that people can see that the tire, the tube is closed. You can see the blue part is the important part to look at. And you see obviously it's round. There's a tube inside the tire. And if we go to the next picture again, you see that the blue, the sealing part is you see once this is gone, you can see again that obviously the tire is open and there would be the sealant and the air inside, but there's no closure towards the rim. That's why it's so important, obviously, to have a rim tape and close up the rim that the air can't escape to the rim. Very good.
And it's also a little bit showing the different types or ways of constructing a tire. And if we see this version, it's somehow, I would say, the old-fashioned way of building a tubeless tire.
Yes.
Because this blue layer, sometimes it was just made from butyl, like a butyl tube, but it was extruded, super thin. And nowadays we are more moving to the way that we have seen the pages before with a cross section, that we just use a specific topping for the carcass to get a tubeless ready tire. Wow. Because then you can omit this additional layer that we have in blue here. The tire gets lighter, but also more supple. Yeah. Because if we go like 10 years back, when we have the UST standard, it was raised by Mavic in these days. The tires were super heavy, super stiff, and tubeless was quite a mess from installation to riding. And so now we have like 10 years of developing, and now it's really, really on top when we talk about tubeless.
Very good. Maybe we go to the next slide, please. Oh, very good. Here we can see, and I think this is an interesting topic for me as well. Obviously, we see on the left side a rim with the hook, where we could see that the bead of the tire would sit in and secure the tire to come off. And then on the right side, the new hookless rims. It's still for me a little bit daunting when I think, okay, there's nothing to hold on, because that's since 30 years since I'm in the bike industry. Obviously, we had always rims with hook, and now hookless technology. What do you think about hookless technology?
Indeed, it's really a major topic in these days, where we have big discussions within the industry, and there are many different opinions about that topic. But from our point of view, it's really depending on the tire use. So for mountain bike use, for gravel use, where you use lower pressure, we see absolutely no problem to use hookless rims. The rims get a little bit stiffer, especially on the upper part, preventing snake bites.
Okay.
And it's also no risk to go a little bit on the normal or average pressure. But there are many points to consider, because for hookless, there's also the trend that rims are getting wider. And if the rim is getting wider, you have to decrease the pressure to get the benefit from the system. And that's the point where a little bit critical about hookless for road tires. Because normally roadies are used to go or inflate the tires to 7 to 10 bar, and that could raise the issue on hookless rims. Because like you mentioned, there's no crotch, no hook, which is somehow clamping the tire on the rim. So if you inflate the tire to 7 bar and you have, for example, you have a rim brake and add additional heat, which is going to raise the air pressure in the tire, there could be an issue of derailing. So in this point, we absolutely agree to use hookless rims, but you have to consider to use a tire that is tubeless easy or tubeless ready, because then you have less bead core elongation, the tire is stiffer, the bead core is more safe. And it's also very important to consider the indicated pressure on the rim. Because when we design a tire, there's one pressure indicated for the maximum pressure, and that's only related to the measuring rim width, for example, 90 millimeter. But nowadays we have 25 millimeter as a maximum rim width for a road racing tire. Yeah. And the volume is increasing, so you have definitely to reduce the pressure.
Okay. We will come in the next topic. We will speak about the tire pressures and so on. So that's very interesting. I think that's a new technology, and we have it already on some of our rim manufacturers. Yeah. Quite interesting. So, Will, if we go maybe to the next slide. I think we are. Oh, very good. Okay, interesting. Yeah. You know, man, I'm always thinking what's coming next. You know, when we kind of with this tire pressure thing, we were going so many years. We had a tire pressure of 7, 8, 9 bar, and I think everyone, including myself, I was always happy to run the tires very high pressure because it just made me go fast. Yeah. And now I'm going down. I have 28 millimeter tires. I'm running 60 psi, 65 psi. And that's almost a bit counterproductive in my head, because I couldn't believe it that it's really something you could think of. But wider tires is something interesting, and I wonder, was it that that you knew it before and that the industry just didn't make you the frames, or what was the problem that we didn't go faster towards that system we see here, that we have a wider tire, and you will explain us what we see here with on the picture.
Yeah, so the benefit of wider tires was already known to us, I would say 10 to 15 years ago, when we had a development project with the university here in Cologne. Yeah. And it was the trend of balloon tires for touring bikes. And it was especially of using bikes in the city, on pavement, on bad roads, and cobblestones, and then we measured the benefit of wider tires and lower pressure. And even at that time, it was already shown that lowering the pressure on wider tires could be a significant improvement of reducing the roading resistance, because you have a constant contact to the road. And all the effort that you put on a pedal is directly given to the tire. For example, if you imagine you have a road bike tire inflated up to 8 bar and would ride on the cobblestones in Paris-Roubaix, you wouldn't have any contact to the road. You would always jump from stone to stone, and all your power would blow away, but not moving you forward. And then if you decrease the pressure to 4 bar, it's like you're riding on air, and you would have constant contact to the road, and all your power is going forward. Very good. And what we see here is a comparison between a 50 millimeter wide tire on the left side and a 37 millimeter wide tire on the right side. And what we see is the difference in the contact patch. So the narrower tire on the right side has a really elliptical shape. Yeah. So it's quite narrow, but it's also quite long. And due to this long contact patch, you have a lot of force that is moving against your rolling. Because every time the tire is having contact to the road, there's a large contact patch to the road, and a lot of friction is raised. So you need more power to ride the same speed with a narrower tire in comparison to the wider version on the left side, where the contact patch is shorter, but also wider. But due to the fact that it's just wide, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in reference or in referring to the movement of the riding direction.
Very good, very interesting. Okay, that's interesting for us to understand. Yeah, good. Will, if you give us the next slide, please. Okay, here we go and speak a bit about rider weight and tire pressure. And I think this is, I'm sure for a few people who are looking at this now, they said, oh my God, I'm too high, or that's too low. I will for sure puncture. But how is this getting along? How can you explain us a bit more? How did you work this out?
Mm-hmm. So that's really based not only on experience on the road that we make with a lot of professional teams, but also we measure the contact patch of the tire. But to make it quite simple, you have 4 important factors that are related to the pressure that you should inflate to your tire. The first is the system weight, so the weight of your body and your bicycle.
Yes.
Second one is the tire volume.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference, what we see also here in between 25 and 30 millimeter. Then you have also the factor of the internal rim width. So 2 years back, there was like a standard of 70 millimeter.
Yes.
And now it's going up to 25.
Wow.
And the same tire will go much wider on this
Yes.
wider rim. So you need to decrease the pressure to get the benefit from this wider rim. And last but not least, there's also the riding conditions, so the surface, which have a big impact on the best performance, on the best tire pressure. And then it's like you can do it like a cluster. So you have on the left side, you have the tire width, but then it's really necessary to consider your rider weight, because we have seen before what was really important also for the indication of this pressure. Sometimes we're using a dual compound on the tire, that you have a really fast rolling compound in the middle of the tire and a softer compound on the shoulder compound. And just for an example, if you're really lightweight, like 55 kilogram, you would inflate the tire to 8 bar. Even with a high cornering speed and high angle, you wouldn't deform the tire to go in contact to the softer shoulder compound. So you wouldn't benefit from the dual compound and from the grip properties that the tire would have if you decrease the pressure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, understand.
But also like a scientific approach with the women team Canyon SRAM, where the women have a weight between 50 and 60 kilogram, and they definitely need to reduce the pressure more compared to a heavier rider. And what is also really important is the case of differentiation between the front and the rear wheel. Okay. Because more than 60% of your body weight are relying on the rear wheel. Yeah. So it makes more sense to increase the pressure on the rear wheel. Yeah. To get a little bit less deformation. But on the front wheel, you get more thrust and more feedback from the road, and you increase the contact patch if you decrease the pressure. Yeah. And like a thumb rule, we can say that you decrease the pressure on the front about 0.2 bar. Okay, okay. Very good. And would you say if the road surface is really good, would you rather go a little bit higher in the pressure? Because in Dubai, we are really blessed with extremely good roads. Mm-hmm. Would you then go a little bit higher, or how would you work with that? I would go a little bit higher, but in the end, what we also recognize, if you go for a long distance ride and mm-hmm. you decrease the pressure about 0.4 bar, it makes quite a difference in all the damping properties of the whole setup. And especially if you're riding TT bikes or extreme positions on your aero bike, it makes quite a difference if you have like a damping system from the tire. Yes. And you afterwards you're much more relaxed because the whole body or muscles that you have normally would use to handle the bike are much more relaxed. Yeah, less fatigue. Okay. And did you have riders where it was really tough to convince them? And did you have to maybe play some tricks on them? And when you go for testing, that they said, "Listen, no, I'm riding since I'm a young boy. I'm riding 8-9 bar," and they would always go and inflate the tire. So even you let the air out, they go back and pump it up, and they feel like just it feels fast. You know, this is the thing that's this difficult is for us to measure the speed. And if you have something which gives you so much feedback, and you hit the road and it feels really harsh, then you think I'm going fast. And that's, I think, which really is misleading, because the first moment it feels really soft, and then you think, okay, I'm not really riding fast because I don't get the feedback from the road. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it was, or is still a big mess, especially with professional athletes who are in the peloton for more than 20 years.
Okay.
And they ever use a pressure like 8 to 11 bar. And it's really, you need a lot of arguments. And sometimes when we did a test, you adjusted the pressure to 5 bar. And then when I checked the pressure again, they inflated them up to 7 bar again. So that's sometimes really difficult to convince them. But I think nowadays the roads get more extreme, even in the European countries where we have all the races, and there's a lot of gravel content, classic races, and we have the experience that a lot of racers had good success and a good feeling on the tire in the classics.
Yes.
They continue to ride on wider tires for all races.
Yeah.
For example, if you have a good result on a 30 millimeter wide tire during the races in the classics of Flanders, which is quite hilly, they continue to race on a 30 millimeter wide tire in Giro Italia as well.
Okay.
So it's also related to the mindset of the rider. And in triathlon, they are much more open to try and play with the pressure, with the width of the tire, because the benefit is quite huge.
Okay. Yes, when you ride on. Okay, very good. Okay, we will keep this in mind, and we leave a little bit of pressure out of the tires. And I think it's really, I'm surprised, and I'm riding, as I said, I'm riding now so much lower pressures, and it just feels, I'm not going any faster, but I feel a bit better.
Yeah. And maybe one more point about that, especially if you're riding a tubeless tire.
Yeah.
As some you should decrease the pressure about 1 bar to get the benefit from setup.
Okay, very good. Okay, I will keep this in mind. Thank you. Will you slide or show us the next slide, please? Okay, here we have some real numbers indicating the benefit of the tires. Yeah, interesting. Maybe you can talk us through what we see.
Yeah, so this was mainly focused or based on the case that still the tubular tire is somehow the benchmark in a profi or in a professional peloton. 99% are still riding tubular tires, but you have to raise the question why they're still using tubulars. If you see these figures, we are not talking about marginal gains. It's a really huge difference. So we measured the speed or the power that you need to pedal the tire to 30 k's per hour.
Yes.
And we did a comparison between the tubular tire on the left column with 24.8 watt. Then the second one was 18.8 is open tubular, so it's already a clincher tire.
Yeah.
But it's made in the old-fashioned way of a tubular tire.
Yes.
And then we have the Core and One tube type, so it's our mid-range tire with a butyl tube. And on the right side, you have the latest version of the Pro One tubeless easy tire. And it's all the same width, so they have all 25 millimeters, so the contact patch is more or less equal. But we're talking about nearly 10 watts difference in between these tires, and it's about a speed of 30 k's. So if you imagine the pros are riding sometimes even speed above 50 k's per hour, it's a really huge difference, and it's only rated to one tire. So for a complete setup, it's really easy to get a benefit about 20 to 25 watts.
Wow.
Just by changing the tire and wheel setup.
Yes, I always tell people when they come in, said, listen, what's the best thing I can do? What's the best value for money I can do on my bike? And the first thing I would always look at the tires and say, listen, get a good set of tires, and you will see immediately there's a huge difference, which you can immediately feel riding a better tire. Okay, very good. Will, if you maybe give us the next slide, please. Very good. Okay, and then we go. Next thing, I think we speak about a really cool word, and I think it's something now in your repertoire. We were speaking about souplesse, and I checked it out, and they were speaking. It's a French word, and it shows about. And they were mentioned some of the riders, Jacques Anquetil, and they said, okay, somebody looking on a bike, and he looks very elegant. He looks very powerful. He looks very smooth. And I know as well when I started cycling, people were speaking about a pedaling style of a rider. They said, okay, he has a nice souplesse. So you could see it's just like an elegant style of a rider on a bike. And I really like the word when you used it in comparison with tires. And I really have to say, when I was riding the first time on the 28 millimeter tubeless, subless Schwalbe Pro 1. That was a big change. I didn't believe it really, that a tire and everything could make such a big difference from what I was riding before. That was a real revelation. And we can see now later, we see that you reconstructed the whole tire, and we have a little video which we want to show just to explain the people about subless.
Yeah.
Get in for the ride, feel the thrill, feel the high. Get in for the ride of the light. I feel electrified. I feel electric. I feel electrified. What I feel, what I feel, what I feel. I'm walking on the sky. What I feel, what I feel, what I feel. I feel electrified. Walking high on a train, floating off on a dream. Never felt so alive. I feel electrified. I feel electrified. What I feel, what I feel, what I feel. What I feel, what I feel, what I feel. I feel electrified.
Very nice. We're lucky we have good weather in Dubai. I'm not sure how it is in Germany right now. I don't think it's really as nice to ride.
No, it's quite foggy and around 0 degree.
Okay, sorry. I'm not going to tell you our weather then. I'm sorry. I don't want to rub it in. We see now here Schwalbe Tubeless Development Road Race 2012. You started with the first idea, and 2019, 2020 now. It has been really amazing. And we've seen later the technology with the subless tire has been completely changing. So this is the time frame we're looking at to really develop a tire.
Yeah. So we see that in 2012, it was the really first beginning of serial tubeless road bike tire. And like I mentioned, that was mainly based on this UST standard.
Yes.
So the tire weight was around 300 grams, quite heavy. And at that time, there was also the issue that there were 99 different rim designs, but we only had one tire. And it was quite a mess to mount one tire on these different rim shapes and rim designs. And sometimes there was even the risk that the tire is going to derail. So it was, quite a difficult time to develop this tire, but also to get into the market and convince the people about the performance. And then it was quite a long time. And we can say that the first big hit was in 2016 was the Pro One, the first edition of the Pro One, which has a weight of 260 grams. And it was even quite supple, but it still have this additional layer that we need to have to make the tire tubeless. And then we make our mind, okay, now we have good rolling resistance, we have low weight, we have good traction, but these are only numbers and figures. What can we do that I would say that even the average rider is able to feel a difference between tires and to feel that the tire is really the element that is providing trust and confidence on a bike. And then we have the idea of creating this new carcass construction.
Here on the next slide, maybe we go to the next slide, please. There we go. Yes. That's very good. Thank you.
Yeah. So here you see that if we start on the button line of the page, you see the former construction, which is called French former. And there we have, like I mentioned earlier this day, 2 layers below the tread.
Yeah.
And then we have also this yellow marked carcass layer or inner liner, which is an additional layer to make the tire airtight. And this is making the tire quite stiff and quite heavy. So you lose a lot of flexibility that the tire normally would have in comparison to a normal tube type tire. And then if we switch to the turn up, so plus carcass construction on the top, you see that it's just a turn up around the bead. So there's just one layer of carcass.
Yes.
And then we have the blue marked layer. It's the same material that we use for the button. So it's also carcass material, and it's just topped or dipped with a specific carcass topping to make it airtight.
Mhm.
And then we have the aspect that if you count the layers below the tread,
Yeah.
we have just 2 layers, and we have the additional V-guard. But in the end, the tire is much more supple
Yeah.
below the tread in comparison to the previous version with 3 layers of carcass. And we even have the benefit that we have 3 layers of carcass on the sidewall to
Yeah.
prevent sidewall cuts.
Yeah. No, really amazing. You know what I like as well, that you didn't stop. You had one of the best tires on the market, that you just went again to the drawing board and you kind of redesigned the whole set and the whole tire and the whole construction again. And this must be a lot of work. And I think it really shows over the years with working with you that you've been really always looking to come up with the best solutions. And that's really, if you buy a new tire, I think it's really something worth to try. The Schwalbe tires, they're just, I think, really something outstanding, and you can really feel the difference. I was really, really surprised about that.
Yeah, and you have to be honest and say that all the competitor tires that we have, they're really close to each other. If you going to compare them with regard to rolling resistance, with regard to weight, they're really close to each other. So for the rider, it's really hard to make a differentiation between all these tires. So we really focus on the riding performance, on the riding behavior, and a feeling that you can really feel on the bike, even if you just ride 2,000 kilometers per year on a road bike. You will definitely feel a difference if you do a 1x1 test and you used to have another material. So that's really, really incredible. And we did the launch 2 years ago on the roads of the Strade Bianche in the Tuscany.
Yeah.
With journalists from all over the world, and they were really impressed because in the beginning we didn't told them about the construction, and we also didn't inform them about the riding pressure. So we just asked them about their weight, and then we decreased the pressure really low, and then we used this gravel roads, but also some curvy downhill sections, and they were really impressed. And then in the end we told them about the real pressure. It was just between 3 and 4 bar on a 30 millimeter wide tire. And they can't believe that such a low pressure is providing such a good riding behavior.
No, absolutely. We go maybe to the next slide, and we can see as well what was on the drawing board for the tire, what you had on your list of things you wanted to achieve. Obviously, I think souplesse being on top, and just that feeling of souplesse, and just I think I think it's really a fantastic word for it, what you have achieved. And it's really souplesse. It just is a fantastic thing. And then all the other things where you wanted to be strong, we see durability, puncture resistance, and so on. But maybe you can tell us more about this, what we see.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So souplesse was indeed a new feature or new aspect in this diagram. But later on, maybe it's also important to know that the souplesse, or the idea of souplesse, is also converted to cross-country mountain biking, where we introduced a new super race construction this year, which is originally based on this Pro One tire, because there you have the same benefits. If you decrease the pressure, you have a lot of traction, but also a lot of speed. And in the end, with the new construction, which is more supple, you also get more grip, because there's a little bit more deformation and contact to the road. It was the same before with the tubeless tire, but now you really feel that there's more confidence in it. And we were even able to reduce the weight about another 15 grams. And what is also really impressive, that we were able to reduce the rolling resistance again. It was already on a really low level, and now we can say with the win of the Ironman World Championship that the Pro 1TT is one of the fastest tires in the world. There's something like really, you can say like a boundary in our lab. It's the marking of 10 watt.
Yes.
And the Pro 1TT is about 9.8.
Okay, wow.
One of the fastest tires that we have ever measured in our lab.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, well done, well done. Yeah, it's really good. And again, if you're looking for a new tire, please, the Schwalbe tire is really an amazing addition. You didn't stop with tires. Obviously, you have now the souplesse tires on the road. You do it for mountain biking, but that was a new project. We're speaking about Aerotan tubes. I like the idea that you didn't stop with what you had. You just went out and again completely start on a piece of white paper and designed a whole new material and a whole new tube. But we have a little video as well to show what's happening. Yes, very good.
Puncture protection redefined. Initializing minimum rolling resistance at maximum driving dynamics. Extremely lightweight. Confirmed. The new Aerothin tube is now ready for use. Schwalbe wants to offer every cyclist the optimal product. When it comes to high-end bicycle inner tubes, this is a big challenge. Lowest weight, with highest puncture resistance. Extremely heat resistant and stable in handling even at low air pressure. This is about the development of a revolutionary product from a completely reworked base material. Aerothin. Specially designed for racing bikes, mountain bikes, or all-round use. The manufacturing process has also been redesigned from scratch and deliberately implemented at Schwalbe's headquarters. The Aerothin tube is 100% made in Germany. This bicycle tube is no longer made of rubber, but of a thermoplastic material, making it completely recyclable. Is this still a bicycle tube? The new Aerothin tube from Schwalbe. Distinctly different.
Thank you very much, Will. Yeah, I'm quite excited to get my hands on them. I think we have some on the way to Dubai, so I think we didn't see them yet. I saw some samples some time ago, but I think now they're ready, and you produced thousands of them in Germany, and now the world is waiting for everything. But tell us a bit more about it, Felix, please.
Yeah, so indeed, this one was a real long-term project. It took us more than 5 years to get to the point where we are right now, to implement the production. But before the production, there was a lot of investigation about the raw material, because maybe some of you know that we implemented or introduced the product 5 years ago, the Evo tube, which was on the same material base. But in that time, it was only the lightweight that was making the product unique. And now we reached to a level where we can say it's all our aspects that we had reached so far with the tube are completely blown away. So the rolling resistance is nearly on the level of a tubeless tire. So it's super less friction between the carcass and the tube. But what is really impressive is the puncture and snakebite resistance. So the values are up to 50 Newton, which was never there for any tube material. And we did a lot of riding on downhill and enduro bikes where we had a lot of snake bites where you already hit the rim, but we never get a flat out with a tube. So it's a real combination of lightweight, but also impressive protection against snake bite and punctures.
Very good, fantastic.
And you could ask, in the beginning, I asked myself, because I was completely convinced about tubeless. And then you ask, okay, why we have to develop a tube. But now for me, it's no question anymore, because we had the idea to provide the best system. No matter if you ride tubeless or tube type, it's up to you. But we, as Schwalbe, want to provide the best material. And I think with the Aerothin tube, it's really a new era of an inner tube.
And what was the resistance you were testing? If, let's say we're taking the high quality tire and we're taking the Aerothin tube compared to tubeless, what numbers are we looking at? You said before you were just under 10, so 9.8. What are the best numbers you could see with Aerothin?
Yeah. So for example, if you stay at the Pro TT and you have 9.8 for the tubeless setup, the tube version with the Aerothin tube would be about 10.4 to 10.6. Okay. So it's quite marginal difference. And I think the Aerothin tube is really interesting for those people who are a little bit afraid of the installation of a tubeless setup, and also with the maintenance, but also the installation with the sealant, which can be a mess if you haven't done it before. So this system is super easy to install. And if I have a spare tube here, So it's also super small. And even if you ride tubeless, you can just put it in your rear pocket and take it with you as a spare tube.
Okay. And how's the puncture resistance? Is this something compared, let's say, to a regular tube or maybe even to a latex tube? How would you say?
So it's that's the most impressive point. So the puncture resistance, we have like a shuttle test where we apply something like a needle to the material. And then we measure the force that you need, but also the elongation of the material. And normally you say that, or you have figures for butyl and latex, it's around 10 Newton, then the tube is destroyed. And the aeroton tube is reaching up to 50 Newton.
Wow.
So it's really impressive. And these numbers have never been there before. And also the elongation, so the flexibility is the same as latex, which are normally known for its super flexible material. But it's like somehow a really good mixture of all these components from tubeless, from latex.
Would it work with sealant as well? Would it work with Doc Blue?
That's a good question. It wouldn't work because the material, the surface of the material is quite stiff. So if you have puncture, then you would have the risk that the sealant is going out of the tube and getting between the carcass and the tube, because it's not like rubber and closing the gap. Due to the fact that it's quite stiff, it would be open. So then it's better to replace the tube, or we have specific glueless patches that you can just put on the destroyed area.
Okay.
And it's also, really, really easy. And installation is even easier in comparison to butyl and latex.
So now we've seen new tubes. We have seen obviously the development 26, 27.5, 29. When it comes to mountain bike, we're now on 28 or 30 millimeter tires with low pressure. What we're going to see 2021, 2022? Anything you can say? Anything? Where I'm always surprised when I'm thinking, how could we not see it that when we were riding 20 millimeter tires, that 28 is so much better? So what are we missing right now? And in a few years, we will look back and think, okay, we could have done this so much better and so much earlier. So is there anything we can expect from Schwalbe?
Of course, you can expect a lot, but at this stage, I can't tell you every detail. But what we can tell is, of course, that we did a lot of investigation about the carcass construction. So we have the target that we want to have a specific carcass construction for the use of the tire. For example, cross-country riders have another demand on the tire in comparison to a trail or enduro rider. Or if we go to the road, there's another or differentiation between a rider who's doing a lot of training on bad conditions that we have here in Germany and your clients. So we want to have the best setup, the best carcass for every use. And of course, there's the ongoing trend of wider tires. So we have 30 now, but there's even a trend to 32 and 34.
Wow.
And what is also really important is the trend of wider rims that you have to consider. So the tire is getting wider, or the whole setup, and that is the most important factor for the tire pressure. So if you're going to choose the wider setup, you definitely need to decrease the pressure to get the benefit. And what is really important for us here in Europe, but also in the US, is the trend of gravel bikes, which are somehow closing the gap between the mountain bike and the road bike. And we see a lot of people that have never been in contact to cycling sport before. They're entering the market with gravel bikes, and could be also really interested in road cycling and mountain biking as well.
Okay, very good. I asked my team today, any questions for Schwalbe? And they one question was with 28, 27 and 29 inch. So that's sometimes confusing that 27 is bigger than 28. And what's the difference between 28 and 29? Because on 28 and 29, the rim diameter is the same. So sometimes, is it just a problem with standards that we're looking at different standards, or are you talking to other manufacturers to kind of clarify this, that we clearly get indication what are the tires?
Yeah, so indeed, it's really related to the standard, but also to the pronunciation and the trend. So 29 was really dedicated to mountain bike.
Yeah.
In the end, the 29 wheel and tire is the same circumference like a 28-inch touring tire or road racing tire. So it's just it's the same with 650B and 27.5 inch.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really a mixture, and it's like, if you are familiar with all these boost standards,
Yes.
For hubs, it's somehow the same way, where we try to define a more clear way to be a member in the ETITO and say, okay, we want to have just one designation on the tire that everybody understands.
Thanks.
But 29 and 28 it's somehow the same.
The same. Very good. And about the tire compounds, we obviously are familiar with the ADEX compound, and there are different compounds, and some of them are, we feel, really kind of soft, and some are harder. So what's the benefit? How many different compounds are you using, and how difficult is it to make a new compound? Or what can you tell us about the rubber compounds, please?
Yeah. So of course the compound is really, really important. But in the beginning, you have to know about for us, from the development side, we have to know where we want to get the benefits from the compound. And that's the same for the rider. So you have to be clear about your proposed and your riding conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And for the ADEX compounds, we have in the mountain bike segments, we have 4 compounds right now. So we have ultra soft, speed grip, and speed. And that's somehow, if we go from XC racing, so cross country, to downhill,
yes,
and the softer the tire, the more power you have to afford to pedal it. But
yes,
if you're riding downhill, you want more thrust and grip in the tire. But also there's somehow, it's always to find a good compromise, because even the softest compounds should have a reliable or a durability that is comprehensible, and you don't have to replace the tire after each second ride. And that's sometimes really hard to find the right way to get all these features of the tire or the compound into one rubber.
Yeah, very good, very good. And I think it was interesting when you said about the rubber compounds on a racing tire, that you have softer compounds on the outside, and you need to have the right tire pressure. Otherwise, maybe you're not really deflating or deflecting the tire as much, so that you really get the grip of the side, and you kind of rolling on the harder and more firm and longer lasting middle part of the tire. But you need to have that tire to move a little bit and deflect, that you can really get the grip, and that obviously would reduce the performance of the tire. So it's not only the performance of the rolling resistance as well, it's grip, which comes with the optimized tire pressure.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it takes to answer your question, it takes quite a long time to develop a compound from the raw material to the commercial product, because there's some points that you wouldn't be aware. Like an end consumer, we also do tests in the sunlight. So the UV absorption, sometimes you develop a compound and then you put it in the sunlight, and after 2 days, there's a lot of cracking on the rubber. And then you have to, maybe you have to replace some chemicals to make the tire durable.
Wow, Felix, I'm impressed. Yeah, and I hope the listeners are as well. And I say again, listen, you do an amazing job, the whole team. We're very happy to be your partner for the region, and I think you make so many people happy by going fast, no punctures. I think I'm looking forward to the new tubes, looking forward to all the development coming in the next years, and super. Thank you very much for the time you spent with us. I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you very much for being here, Wolfi. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Regards to everyone in Germany, and I hope you come soon to us, to Germany, to Dubai. The weather is better, so we can take it for a ride.
Yeah, I should immediately go after Christmas.
Very good. Very good.
Go for a ride.
Very good. Thank you very much, Felix. Yeah. Thank you everyone.
Have a
Have a
good
good
time.
evening. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.